His shadow laughed before he did. That's when I knew my rival wasn't human. Horizon and Kin's presentation hall was all edges and reflections. Glass. Walls. Poured concrete floors. A ceiling grid like a chessboard. The air conditioning bit the back of my neck. The room smelled like burnt espresso, and those thick toxic markers that promise permanence and deliver ghosts. My phone buzzed once in my blazer pocket, buzzing against my ribs like a guilty heartbeat. I didn't check it. He stepped into the light the way people step into applause, as if it belonged to him. Tall. Precise. Shirt the color of mist, collar open just enough to suggest trouble. Citrus clung to him. Something bright and clean, as if he could zest the day. When he smiled it was slow, like he'd given the moment a private cue. And then, the shadow, his shadow, curled at the edge of the glass and laughed a fraction of a second before his mouth even twitched. The hairs on my arms rose. Concentration problem, Parker? Or a reality problem? "Good morning," said June from the hiring panel, voice calm as a plumb line. "Final test. A 10-minute mini-pitch on the brief you received. After that, we will consider—" "One chair," I murmured to myself. "One crown." I wanted it the way lungs want air. Greedily, automatically, without apology. He looked at me across the room, black eyes reflecting strips of the ceiling lights like oil on water. "You're talented, Leo. Too bad I'm here to beat you." Words left my mouth before my brain signed for the package. "Guess we'll see who kisses who first." A low ripple went through the staff seated in the back. Someone coughed on coffee. June blinked, then made a note. My ears ignited. He only tipped his head, that lazy half-smile carrying the exact energy of a match thinking about being lit. "Mr. Parker," June said. "You first." I walked to the glass wall we used as a board, uncapped a marker, and the smell hit. Permanent, chemical, the promise of lines no one can scrub away. The tip squeaked. The sound shivered right through me, clean as a violin string. "Brief relaunch of a commuter coffee brand losing relevance," I said. Voice steady enough to make me wonder whose it was. "We stop speaking in slogans and start speaking in morning rituals. Not coffee as fuel. Coffee as witness." I sketched circles, a map, the shape of a story, a mother tying sneakers while the kettle hums, a barista who knows the order, knows the secret extra shot on. Interview days, two strangers who start with the same cup and end up at the same crosswalk at the same time. How a brand waits for you where you become yourself. My phone buzzed again, insistent. I ignored it and underlined witness. "A platform called Seen at Sunrise," I said. "User stories captured at daybreak. The brand doesn't shout, 'Wake up.' It listens for the sound of waking. It shows up. It remembers." When I set the marker down, my fingers were inked. The room listened the way rooms do when they want more. A metallic tang slid across my tongue, unexpected. Like biting down on a coin. I swallowed it. From the corner of my eye I saw him shift. Riven, they'd said at check-in, as if a name could be a blade. He rolled the marker between his fingers like he was testing balance. "Thank you, Leo," June said. "Mr. Riven, you may respond." He didn't write at first. He stood where the light was brightest, as if the light were a thing that could be trained. "Mornings are promises," he said, voice low, amused. "Promises we break and make again." Leo opens the door with witness. "I'd like to walk through with reply." He flicked the marker, a neat dark line cutting across my word. He drew a horizon and hung a tiny sun from it, a childish circle that somehow felt inevitable. "We build micro-exchanges on receipts, cup sleeves, bus stop screens. You tell the brand a truth. I got up after my third alarm, and it tells you one back. We saved you a seat anyway." Laughter, quick and warm. The sound made my bones ache, as if I'd been cold and hadn't known it. He kept going, not with fireworks but with flares, contained, timed, landing exactly where attention would be. The room inhaled, and did not exhale for a long time. He used my witness, and braided it with reply. He spun a small script. A man misses the Blue Line train. A cup writes him a note for his pocket. Later, he finds it, and chooses to call instead of text. It wasn't magic. It was worse. It was good. His shadow bent around the baseboard a beat too fast when he stepped back. The citrus swelled. I could taste it now, crystalline over that odd metallic bloom at the back of my throat, like lightning thinking about striking. June nodded. Thank you. Questions? Hands went up. We took them volley style, like sparring partners politely trading bruises. He took a question about data ethics and turned it into a sonnet. I grounded a question about KPIs with deadpan specifics, and a joke about caffeine tolerance thresholds. The panel smiled like they'd been given sugar, and didn't want to admit it. My phone buzzed again, longer this time, Max's name flashing in my mind like a warning sign. Later, whoever needed me could wait 10 minutes while I fought for a life. Last exercise, June said. 1-minute lightning concept, same brief but assume the budget just shrank by 40%. Riven's eyebrow moved the way the tide does. Cheap is honest, he said. We ask people to write directly on the cups and sleeves. We display their handwriting. Witness meets reply, hand to hand. He drew a looping script on the glass that looked like my grandmother's grocery lists. People in the back sighed like he'd opened a window. I stepped forward, marker in hand. We cut the screens and keep the stories. Dawn ambassadors, baristas who pick a story from our feed every morning and read it aloud once the door opens. A human chorus at sunrise. We pay them extra. We film none of it. Silence fell that wasn't empty. The AC kicked colder. I felt the draft on the sweat just beginning to cool at my back. My heart was a thing, learning drums. June looked at us like a woman standing at the edge of a cliff and admiring the view. Thank you both. We'll convene. I recapped the marker. My fingers were stained black. I wiped them on a napkin and made the stain worse, which felt metaphorically on brand. Riven drifted closer, his shoulder almost brushing mine. The citrus was quieter here, as if it knew to whisper. Witness was a good word, he said, barely moving his mouth. Reply was a better one, I said, because truth tastes cleaner than flattery. He considered me, as if the angle of my jaw were a problem worth solving. You didn't check your phone, did you? I don't carry one, he said. I carry people who do. I snorted before I could stop myself, heat creeping up my neck again. Do you practice lines like that in front of a mirror, or do they come with the bone structure? Leo, he said, and my name in his mouth felt like a new brand. Tested, approved, a little dangerous. If this were a different kind of competition, I'd ask to see your mirror. I'd charge admission, I said. He smiled, slow, that private cue again, and turned toward the glass wall to cap the marker he'd used. He moved. His reflection did not. It stayed facing me, eyes on mine, a fraction out of sync like a video buffer catching up. It was small, a stutter in light, the tiniest tell. A metallic taste pulsed under my tongue, bright as a struck coin. His reflection, still looking, tilted its head a fraction after his had already moved away. My skin prickled. Concentration problem, Parker, or a reality problem? See you at sunrise, Riven said softly, not looking back. His shadow laughed again, one step ahead of him, as the panel called our names. Open space at Horizon and Kin had a rhythm, the low hum of printers, the squeak of rolling chairs, keyboards clattering like rain. The air was warm with toner, paper, and that faint glue smell of fresh binders. My inbox dinged twice, but the real weight was the thick envelope on my desk. The brief. Same one Riven had. Of course, because nothing says competition like matching guns at dawn. I slid the pages out, scanning bullet points about a retail rebrand, budget constraints, and youth engagement. Marketing déjà vu. My pen tapped against the margin. Across the open floor, he lounged in a chair tilted just past safe. The envelope in his hands was already open. He didn't read. He skimmed, like words knew they were temporary tenants. When our eyes met, his grin had the sharpness of a dare. At the coffee station, I poured espresso into a chipped mug that someone had sharpied with ideas before emails. A spoon clinked against ceramic, the sound bright and metallic. The bitterness rose as steam, promising either salvation or heartburn. Riven arrived without footsteps, only scent, citrus and cool iron. He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms as if gravity owed him favors. Same brief? I asked, stirring. Same battlefield. He tilted his head toward my mug. Make me proud, mortal. I almost choked on the sip. Mortal? That your brand voice? Or do you just rehearse mythology in the mirror? He raised the paper cup he hadn't even filled. Both. The spoon clattered in my mug when I set it down too hard. I hated that he made me laugh under my breath. Leo. June's voice, calm as always, came from behind a stack of mock-ups. She wore a blazer that never wrinkled, not even under fluorescent light. I followed her into a corner lined with poster boards. You don't need the performance, she said, soft enough that only I could hear. You're strongest when you don't try to please everyone. Trust yourself. It landed heavier than I expected. I wanted to tell her I was trying so hard it felt like sprinting in sand. Instead, I nodded, swallowing coffee like medicine. She gave me the kind of smile that refuses applause. Good. Now get back in the ring. Back at my desk, Max leaned casually on the divider. He'd been my friend since college group projects, a dependable ally in late-night pizza-fueled brainstorms. Today he gave me the same grin he always had, but his eyes flicked down, too quick, toward my open laptop. Looks solid, he said, gesturing vaguely to the half-finished deck on my screen. Your usual Leo spin, human angle. They'll eat it up. Thanks, I said, closing the lid just a little too casually. He drummed fingers on the divider. Need a sounding board later? Maybe. Max's smile stretched, friendly enough, but the glance lingered, like he was memorizing bullet points through osmosis. My chest tightened, a metallic tang creeping back on my tongue. The elevator at the far end of the floor dinged, lights flickering as if unsure of their purpose. Riven stepped in with June and 2 designers. I caught the briefest flicker from the idea board on the wall, the one cluttered with pastel sticky notes. As he passed, several notes shifted. Not much. Just the faintest tremor, like paper reacting to static. Or to him. No one else noticed. I rubbed the back of my neck, heat prickling under my collar. Concentration problem, Parker, or a reality problem? The elevator doors slid shut, mirrors flashing for a heartbeat before they sealed. His reflection held my gaze 1 second longer than it should have. The spoon in my empty mug still trembled, clinking faintly against ceramic. Long after he was gone, the conference room was too bright. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, bouncing off glass walls until the air itself felt sterile. I'd stopped by to grab my notes, only to hear my own words coming back at me, except in Max's voice. I froze in the doorway. He was at the screen. Slides projected large and clean, my careful sequence of images and phrasing stripped of fingerprints. The opening slide had a new title card slapped on it. Bold sans serif, his name in the footer. My name was gone. Every trace scrubbed like chalk washed from a board. Coffee as witness, Max said with a confident smile, clicking forward. It's not a brand, it's a mirror. My chest burned, heat surging under my ribs, rushing to my ears. The sound of my own metaphor in his mouth was unbearable, like someone else reciting your secret diary and pretending the ink was theirs. Not again. Not another rewrite of my handwriting. Another voice wearing my clothes. The panel nodded, scribbling notes. One even smiled at the phrasing I'd sweated over last night at 2 a.m. And Max kept moving, his cadence eerily close to mine. He knew my rhythm. He'd studied it enough to mimic. The rage built sharp, metallic in my throat. I wanted to crash through the glass wall, rip the clicker from his hand, shout the truth until their ears bled. Instead, I stood silent, my pulse a drum drowning out the hum of the lights. A low voice slid into the room from the doorway behind me. Mortals stealing from mortals. How boring. I turned. Riven leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, black shirt loose enough to make him look like shadow given form. His eyes glinted, amused, not at Max, but at me. Let them try, he murmured. A copy never sings the same. My fists clenched. Easy for you to say, he tilted his head. Especially easy for me. By the time the presentation ended, my nails had bitten crescents into my palms. I didn't wait to be seen. I left. The open space was nearly deserted. Monitors on sleep mode casting pale blue across abandoned desks. The only light left came from the exit sign over the stairwell. My laptop weighed heavy in my bag. My thoughts heavier. At the corner bar, neon spilled across the cracked leather booths and sticky tables. I downed a whiskey too fast, the burn doing nothing to dull the sharper fire inside me. Riven found me naturally. He slid into the booth without asking, leaning back like it was reserved for him all along. "Enjoy the show?" I asked, bitter enough to curdle the ice in my glass. "You tell me." He signaled for a drink without looking at the bartender. "Your friend wears your sentences like a borrowed jacket. Does it fit?" The question landed like a knife. "You steal too," I snapped. "Just cleaner. You take what isn't yours and call it inspiration." His lips curved slowly, dangerously. "I amplify. I lift. I make things blaze. When I take—" He leaned forward, shadows folding with him. "It's because someone begs me to. They ask for miracles. And miracles are never free." The glass was cold in my hand, condensation slick against my fingers. My pulse thundered. "And I'm supposed to thank you for being a more elegant thief?" He smirked, leaning back again. I'd settle for acknowledgement. I swallowed rage with the last mouthful of whiskey. It tasted like rust and smoke. Later, alone at the bar, I pulled my phone from my pocket, thumbs scrolling furiously through my inbox. A flagged message caught my eye, an automated trace from our internal system. The attachment wasn't mine. It was from Trent. Sent 2 nights ago. Recipient, Max. Subject, tips on selling the Sunrise deck. Attachment, a slide file, my slide file. Renamed. My gut dropped. This wasn't just betrayal. It was choreography. Max hadn't acted alone. And Trent, the man who oversaw the selection process, was holding the strings. Riven's loft didn't look like it belonged to anyone alive. The ceiling stretched too high, beams like ribs of some long-dead cathedral. Shelves climbed the walls, overstuffed with books whose spines were worn, but not dusty, as if they'd been touched over and over by restless hands. The air smelled of rain from the open windows, and old smoke clinging to the velvet curtains. Somewhere in the corner, a record player spun without sound, the needle resting against nothing. He set a glass of something amber in front of me. "Drink, or stare. Either way, keep your hands steady." "What are we doing?" I asked, wary of the shadows that seemed thicker here, as if they obeyed his rules. "Demonstration." He opened his hands, palms up. At first, nothing. Then a glow pulsed under the skin, soft as candlelight, growing brighter until it spilled between his fingers. A faint hum filled the room, low and insistent, like bees trapped in glass. I leaned forward despite myself. The air vibrated against my teeth. "This," he said, voice quieter than the sound itself, "is what an idea looks like when it's being pulled. Not born, not nurtured. Stolen, forced out before it's ready." The glow flared, hot white, then dimmed to an exhausted flicker. My stomach twisted. It was terrible and beautiful at once, like watching breath stolen from a child. He snapped his fingers. The light vanished. Silence rushed back in, louder than the hum. "You feed on that?" I whispered. He turned away, pacing toward the window, shoulders taut. "I used to call it collaboration. Amplification. But that's what parasites always say, isn't it? That they give as much as they take." I didn't answer. The truth clung heavy in the air. That's when the buzzer on his door rasped sharp against the night. He didn't move to answer. He only muttered, persistent. Seconds later, she was inside anyway. Viola Park, her heels clicking across the hardwood like applause, her perfume cutting through the rain. A woman carved in glass and ambition. "Riven," she said, smile like a contract already signed. "You still live like a myth." "Viola," he returned, voice flat. She glanced at me once, dismissing me as if I were just another piece of furniture. Her gaze slid back to him, hungry. "We could win again. Like before. You and me. Remember the campaigns we crushed? No one could touch us. Come back." "No." His tone iced the room. She laughed softly, brushing a hand over his arm. "You're wasting yourself on mortals. On scraps. You were meant to dominate, not babysit. The glow flickered under his skin again, unbidden. Like it was answering her call. He pulled his arm back. I said no. For the first time, Viola's perfect smile cracked. You'll regret this. Her heels struck the floor sharper as she left, slamming the door behind her. The silence afterward was suffocating. Later, we climbed to the rooftop. The night air clung wet against my shirt, the city steamed with after-rain heat. Streetlights blurred in puddles below. My tie whipped sideways, the wind yanking at it like it wanted me naked in front of the skyline. You don't have to serve her, I said, raising my voice against the gust. Or any of them. He stood at the edge, coat unbuttoned, hair wild in the current. And you don't have to be convenient. Yet here you are, trimming your edges for approval. What's the difference? The words stung. Too accurate. Too cruel. I fight for my own name, I snapped. And I fight for my own hunger. He stepped closer, eyes catching the lightning flicker behind the clouds. Don't pretend one is holier than the other. For a moment the distance shrank, his face inches from mine, breath, carrying that bright citrus over the wet metal scent of the storm. His hand brushed my sleeve, barely there, like testing if the world would let him. The sky grumbled above us, thunder dragging its claws across the horizon. Ozone licked the back of my throat. We didn't kiss. Not quite. The pull was there, raw and reckless. But both of us stepped back in the same instant, like two magnets suddenly remembering they were supposed to repel. The wind tore at us, and the city roared below. Between us, the silence said everything. This was no longer just competition. This was war. The night corridors of Horizon and Kin felt different when the cameras blinked off. There were stretches of hallway where the security lights stuttered and shadows thickened into blind spots. I'd passed them 100 times, never thinking about it. Tonight, they looked like traps. The rehearsal for our final pitch was supposed to start at 9 sharp. By 9:15, panic was simmering. The screens in Conference Alpha stayed black. No files, no mock-ups, just the cursor blinking like a pulse we couldn't reach. June frowned at her tablet, scrolling furiously. The decks aren't syncing. Half the folders are missing. They were there last night, I said, throat tight. I uploaded them myself. Maybe you misfiled. Leo doesn't misfile, Mia cut in from the corner. She was the youngest in the room, all wide-eyed earnestness, but her voice had bite. He triple checks. Her laptop clicked open with a speed that made me wonder if she lived in our network. I'll pull the access logs. Minutes passed. I paced. My tie felt like a noose. Across the room, Riven leaned against the wall like we were waiting for a bus. Not a flicker of concern. Finally, Mia sucked in a breath. Got it. Someone logged in last night, 2 a.m. Admin clearance? She turned the screen toward us. Credentials match. Trent Caldwell. My gut twisted. The manager who smiled too wide, who always seemed to be calculating which chairs might be vacant soon. And as if summoned, Trent strolled into the room, coffee cup in hand, tie perfectly knotted. He didn't look like a man caught. He looked like a man ready to sell tickets. What's going on here? He asked, tone sweet as poison. Our files are missing, June said, sharp. Trent's gaze slid to me. Really? I was warned Leo had a history of losing track of things. Guess it's true. The words hit like a punch. The panel's head swiveled toward me. My chest burned. That's a lie. Maybe not intentional, Trent interrupted, oozing sympathy. But accidents happen. And we can't risk them at this level. I wanted to tear his perfect tie off and shove his smug smile down his throat. My hands curled into fists. Riven spoke for the first time, casual as ever. Funny. If you think Leo's so sloppy, why did you log into the system at 2 a.m.? With your admin key? The silence was nuclear. Trent's face flickered, then reset. I was checking backups. Riven said, tilting his head, eyes glinting with too much knowledge. Then I suppose you accidentally deleted them, instead of saving them. Trent's smile froze, then sharpened. Either way, the rehearsal is ruined. We'll have to make decisions without seeing the full mock-ups. His words landed heavy, a dismissal cloaked as procedure, a guillotine edge. June looked uneasy, the others looked convinced. I felt the ground sliding from under me. When Trent left, Riven turned to me. Well, temporary alliance? I glared. Until you stop trying to snack on my brain. His smirk widened. Fair enough. The rest of the night was chaos. The servers coughed out corrupted files. Mock-ups appeared half-finished, some layered with glitchy white noise. The printer in the corner jammed, coughed, and spat a crumpled page that smelled like burnt plastic. We needed visuals, any visuals, by morning. So Riven and I did the unthinkable. We rated every half-saved draft screenshot and backup thumbnail, patching them into a monster presentation. A Frankendeck. The printer rattled like it was about to explode. Pages fanned out, collaged together with tape, and the kind of hope that belongs in bad movies. My hands were black with toner, streaked like war paint. Riven lifted a fistful of warm paper, smudging his wrist. So this is what human war smells like? I snorted, hair sticking damp to my forehead. Like failure and carcinogens. He blinked at me, then chuckled low. Charming. By 2 a.m. the table in Conference Alpha was buried in mismatched visuals, our hands ink-stained, our nerves stripped raw. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect. But it was alive. I looked at him across the paper chaos, his black shirt dusted white at the cuff. For the first time, he didn't look untouchable. He looked invested. Tomorrow, I muttered, more to myself than to him, we burned Trent down. Riven raised his glass of water like a toast. Now you're speaking my language. The Freelancers' Lounge was the only room in the building that didn't feel designed for conquest. No glass walls, no blinding white lights, just mismatched couches, a fridge, humming in the corner, and a coffee table scarred with old water rings. The clock read past midnight. The place smelled like reheated noodles and ink. I sat on the arm of a couch, rolling the cap of a dead marker between my fingers, trying not to think about how easy it would be for Trent's smear to stick. Across from me, Riven lounged like the couch had been built for him alone, shadows folding around his shoulders. You've been glaring at that marker for 10 minutes, he said finally. Better than glaring at you. His smile was tired this time, almost human. Leo, I should tell you something about what I do. I looked up. He rotated his hand, palm open. When I amplify an idea, it feels good. Euphoric, like riding lightning. People think they're geniuses. For a while they are, but afterward, emptiness. A hangover. They crash. Hard. His voice dimmed. That's the part they don't remember asking for. I swallowed. You've done it to me? No. His eyes met mine, sharp and steady. I won't. Not unless you ask. And even then, I'd rather you didn't. The marker cap slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the table. My chest tightened, a mix of relief and something harder to name. So you're saying your miracle is just creative caffeine with a soul-sucking bill at the end? Something like that. He leaned back. And I don't want your brilliance to be borrowed. I want it to be yours. I laughed once, bitter. You think I have brilliance? Most days I feel like a placeholder. Just ordinary. Too ordinary. Watching you walk in and make everyone hold their breath, it makes me sick with envy. I try so hard, and you just exist. His gaze softened, like he hadn't expected me to admit it. You don't see yourself clearly, Leo. That's the mortal curse. You're so busy measuring yourself against others, you miss the ways you're already burning. The words lodged in my throat, dangerous because they felt true. I scrubbed my hands over my face. If we're going to survive this together, we need rules. Rules, he echoed, amused. Yeah. 3. I held up a finger. First, no stealing. Not from each other. Agreed, he said instantly, like it cost him nothing. Second, amplification, your lightning trick, only with clear consent. If I say no, it means no. He nodded, slow. Consent. Crystal. Third, any... I hesitated. Any gift you give me, we log it. We keep score. No unspoken debts. That earned me a genuine smile, half shadow, half light. A ledger from miracles. How very human of you. Do we have a deal or not? He stood. I did too, though my knees weren't entirely steady. For a moment the lounge felt smaller, the air thick with the stale warmth of midnight. He extended his hand. When I took it, the contact was ordinary. Skin, pressure, warmth. But then, beneath it, a flicker, a spark without fire. A static pulse that raced up my arm and into my chest. His pupils tightened. Mine probably did too. We both let go at the same time, the spark snapping like a string cut short. Silence stretched. Then, unexpectedly, we both laughed. The sound was rough, unpolished, but real. First time I've felt calm in weeks, I admitted, slumping back onto the couch. First time I've felt honest in longer than that, he said, dropping beside me. The fridge hummed, the city outside sighed, and for once, there was no weight between us. Just an agreement. Just a line neither of us planned to cross. The office at night was a different animal. The open space looked like a husk. Monitors asleep, chairs half swiveled, the hum of the HVAC the only heartbeat. Paper scraps and coffee cups stood like monuments to battles fought earlier in the day. I rolled a length of craft paper across the table. The brown sheet crinkled, unfurling like a banner. We're not building a slogan, I said, uncapping a thick black marker. We're building a neighbor. Riven arched an eyebrow, perched on the table's edge as if gravity respected him less than the rest of us. A neighbor. Yeah. I sketched a rough block of buildings, crude rectangles stacked together. The marker bled through my fingertips. A brand that doesn't preach. It listens, like the neighbor who remembers your dog's name or notices when you finally repaint the balcony. It's present without being loud. The marker squeaked, and I hated how vulnerable the sound made me feel. Riven tilted his head, considering. Then, slowly, a smile tugged. Not a megaphone. A mirror. He snatched the marker from me with a flourish and drew a bold line under my buildings, a horizon with small squares along it. Imagine this: city screens, bus stops, billboards, storefront projections that don't sell, but answer. You send them fragments, confessions, wishes, small truths, and the city dreams them back. He wrote the phrase in his sharp hand across the page, city that dreams back. The words made the air hum, not supernatural, not glowing, just right. My chest tightened with the rush of it. Interactive campaign, he went on, pacing now. You tell the brand, I overslept again. And the screen says, we still saved you a seat. You whisper, I want to start over, and the city sketches a dawn skyline just for you. It was terrifying how good it was. Terrifying, because it didn't feel stolen. It felt born between us. Mia leaned over her laptop, eyes wide as she coded a quick mock-up. We could feed submissions through an app and randomize which screens answer. Look. She turned the screen. Text flickered across a sample billboard photo. I miss my dad. A reply scrolled back. He'd be proud you're here. I swallowed. That's brutal. And brilliant. The room filled with scribbles and laughter. Marker ink staining our hands. Craft paper piled in messy sheets. Doodles of skylines and arrows pointing everywhere. I hadn't felt this alive in weeks. Not since before Max. Not since before Trent. We were mid-riff when the overhead lights sputtered, fizzed and died. The entire floor plunged into shadow. Perfect, I muttered. Phone flashlight clicking on. Riven's light flared a second later, his face lit from below, sharp and otherworldly. He glanced at me, smirk curling. Romance on a budget. I barked a laugh, sweeping my beam across the paper like a stage spotlight. Better than candles. First rule of inspiration, he said solemnly, holding his phone like a torch. Always find an outlet. Mia snorted behind her screen. You two are ridiculous. But she kept typing, her face aglow with the laptop's stubborn battery. Shoulders hunched like she was protecting fire. The three of us worked like that. Flashlights balanced on coffee cups, our voices bouncing off the empty office. Time bled away. The craft paper became a battlefield of ink, slogans crossed out, sketches overlapping, arrows looping into circles. At some point, Riven leaned over my shoulder to write, his citrus scent mixing with ink and dust. His arm brushed mine, and I didn't move. Neither did he. "This one's it," he said softly, underlining the phrase again. "City that dreams back." And for the first time, it didn't feel like either of us had won. It felt like we'd found something bigger than both. By dawn, the craft paper was taped to the walls like murals, the table littered with pens and empty cups. Mia finally shut her laptop, triumphant. Prototype ready. I sank into a chair, exhausted but humming with adrenaline. Riven leaned against the window, watching the city blush with early light. "Looks like the city's already dreaming," he murmured. I couldn't argue. For once, I didn't want to. Conference Alpha felt more like a theater than a meeting room. Rows of chairs faced the stage where the big screen loomed, cables snaking like veins across the floor. The air smelled faintly of dust and warm circuitry, and my stomach twisted with a cocktail of nerves and cheap coffee. We were supposed to run through our demo at 10. At 10 sharp, Trent was already on stage, smiling with the kind of ease only lies can buy. His deck filled the screen, some glossy campaign about lifestyle branding that sounded suspiciously like reheated leftovers. "Sorry team," he called down when June raised a brow at the schedule. "We had to make a last-minute slot change. You're still on the board, just at the end." The end. Where attention sags, where panels check their watches. My jaw ached from how hard I was grinding my teeth. Riven slid into the seat beside me, his voice pitched low enough for only me to hear. "Convenient, isn't it? Too convenient." By the time we finally set up, the room was emptying of energy. I booted up our prototype, the logo pulsing faintly. My eyes skimmed the slides, then froze. Some of our phrasing, the structure of our story, even the rhythm of witness, reply. It had bled into another department's pitch, the one that had presented 2 slots before. "Someone leaked it," I muttered. "Pieces of ours are already out there." Mia looked stricken. "But it's not possible. Our files were locked." "Locked," Riven repeated, almost smiling. "Which makes breaking in all the more poetic." I shut the laptop with a snap. "We can't use the script. If it's already out, we'll look like the copycats." Mia's eyes widened. "Then what?" "We improvise," I said, throat dry. "Shift the frame. Same core, new words. Make it ours again." The weight of it hit me, the risk, the sheer madness. But something in me tightened with resolve. I turned to Riven. "You in?" His eyes gleamed. "Always." On stage, the lights felt surgical. The panel leaned forward, pens poised. My pulse hammered. The kind of tempo that either kills or carries you. I started talking. No script, no notes. Just the bones of what we'd dreamed on craft paper and caffeine. A brand not as a megaphone, but as a neighbor. Screens that didn't just speak but listened. The city that didn't demand, but dreamed back. Every so often, Riven leaned close, his whisper a vibration against my ear. Not invasive, not dragging ideas out of me, just tuning. "Emphasize the human chorus," he murmured once. Later, "anchor it in morning rituals." Each prompt was like a tuning fork against my ribs, steadying, aligning. I carried it forward, words rolling hotter, freer. The panel was scribbling, nodding. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was reaching. I felt like I was already there. When we wrapped, silence held the room for a beat too long. Then applause broke, sharp and sustained. I exhaled, chest hollowed by relief. Backstage, the adrenaline cracked into laughter. I pressed my palms to my face, grinning despite myself. That was insane. Riven leaned against the wall, watching me with that infuriating half-smile. Insane works. I dropped my hands and found him too close. Not suffocating, not staged. Just close enough that the hum of his presence wrapped around me, citrus and storm. My breath caught. For one suspended second, the space between us felt thinner than paper. His eyes dipped to my mouth. Mine did the same. We didn't kiss. We both laughed instead, breaking the tension like kids caught stealing candy. He stepped back, slow, deliberate. "After we win," he said. "After we win," I echoed, trying to sound casual though my pulse betrayed me. We shook on it, our pact sealed not with sparks this time, but with a promise hanging heavy in the air. The boardroom wasn't a room at all. It was a cathedral of glass and steel, a chamber designed to humble. Rows of leather chairs filled with executives, clients, and investors. The ceiling soared high, acoustic panels catching every breath and magnifying it into judgment. Mia adjusted the cables at the podium while I stood center stage, pulse roaring in my ears. Riven lingered beside me, his posture loose, eyes sharp. We hadn't spoken much that morning. The air between us was already thick with everything unsaid. When the lights dimmed, I began with nothing but silence. Then, clear and steady, brands win when they stop speaking first. The words rang across the hall. For a moment no one moved. Then the screen lit up, not with slogans, but with raw user submissions we'd collected overnight. A teenager scribbled hope, "I just want to feel noticed at least once today." A nurse's exhausted truth, "I haven't had a morning off in 6 months." A father's confession, "I tell my kid I don't drink coffee so he won't copy me. But I lie every day." Each one flickered, then reshaped into a soft visual. Skylines, steaming cups, small animations that carried no logos, only empathy. The room inhaled together. And for 3 breaths, no one exhaled. I pressed forward, my voice riding the hush. The future of branding isn't louder. It's listening. It's a neighbor, not a megaphone. A witness that remembers. A city that dreams back. Riven's presence pressed close beside me, but he didn't interfere. No whispers, no push. I could feel the restraint in him, the way his power hummed just under the surface, aching to flood the room. And he held it back, for me. For us. I stole a glance. His mouth curved, not into his usual smirk, but into something softer, prouder. The Q&A began, and questions came rapid fire. Data ethics, ROI, scalability. We volleyed them like pros, me grounding in specifics, Riven weaving vision. The panel leaned forward, hungry. Then a new voice sliced through the air. "Fascinating presentation," said Viola Park, rising smoothly from her seat. Her diamond earrings caught the light like knives. "But some of us remember how Mr. Riven works, don't we?" All eyes turned. "Riven," she said sweetly. "We've won together before. Do you recall? Or do you plan to forget the miracles you performed for me?" A ripple stirred in the room. My throat tightened. She wasn't speaking about marketing. She was exposing the truth. Riven stood taller, every line of him carved sharp. He didn't flinch. "I remember," he said, voice low, steady. "And I refuse to repeat it." She tilted her head. "Refuse? Why deprive them of your shortcuts?" "Because I'm not your shortcut," he said, words slicing clean. "I'm not anyone's shortcut. I am not a miracle for hire. I am a partner when chosen, not when rented." Gasps, whispers, a shifting tide. Viola's smile curdled, but she sat down. My lungs finally remembered how to breathe. That was Mia's cue. She tapped her keyboard once, and the main screen split. Access logs appeared, crisp and undeniable. "Internal audit," she said brightly, though her hands trembled. "Credentials used for unauthorized access, Mr. Trent Caldwell. 2 a.m. logins, file deletions." Another tap. Metadata flashed side by side. Our deck. Max's stolen slides. Identical fingerprints. The boardroom turned into a hive of whispers. Faces turned toward Trent, who paled under the lights. "This is outrageous," he tried, voice cracking. "Anyone could." "No." June cut in from the front row, her voice cold steel. "This is evidence. We will conduct a full internal review." Trent's mouth opened, then closed. His tie looked suddenly too tight. I returned to the podium, heart steady now. One last demonstration. The lights dimmed further. The screen shifted to live feed. At the entrance, we'd asked every attendee to write a phrase on a tablet. A confession, a thought, a hope. Now, those fragments streamed onto the big screen. "I need courage. I don't want to retire invisible. I want to believe in something again. Each phrase transformed instantly into art, glowing cityscapes, morning rituals, messages written in the sky. The system whispered back, not to sell, but to acknowledge. The boardroom was silent. Then the applause began. Slow at first, then louder, rising, unstoppable. People stood, some even cheered. I caught Riven's eye. He didn't move, but I felt it, the quiet surge of pride, the unspoken "you did this without me holding the strings." And maybe that was the real miracle. When the noise settled, the CEO stood. Unprecedented. 2 finalists, 1 vision, 2 creative directors, then 2 perspectives. 1 team. The decision rang through the chamber like a gavel. Riven looked at me, dark eyes alight. I let myself smile, wide and unguarded. For the first time in weeks, I felt not stolen, not ordinary. I felt chosen, and I wasn't alone. Conference Alpha looked different when it belonged to us. The glass walls still framed the city's skyline, neon and sunset bleeding together, but the air felt warmer, claimed. The table was ours now. Buried not in sabotage and stolen slides, but in fresh notebooks, half-empty mugs, and the reckless scrawl of future plans. A week had passed since the final pitch. A week of whispered fallout and boardroom politics. Trent had been quietly suspended pending review of conduct. Max had been quiet too, until now. He stood at the door, awkward as a schoolboy. His tie was crooked, his smile tighter than I'd ever seen it. "Leo," he started. "I'm sorry." I leaned back in my chair. "You should be..." His throat bobbed. "I screwed you over. It was stupid. Desperate. I thought if I had 1 win, I'd matter." "You mattered already," I said, softer than I wanted. Then, I straightened. "But apology doesn't erase it. No shared projects for a while. I need space." He nodded, relief mingling with shame. "Fair. I'll earn it back." When he left, the silence stretched. Riven's eyebrow rose, amused. "You're kinder than I expected," he said. I shrugged. "Doesn't mean I forget." Later, with the city lights glittering through the glass, we spread resumes across the table. Our first joint hire. The thought still felt unreal, co-directors. "This one's got agency experience," I said. Riven leaned over, citrus scent brushing the air. "Too rigid." "I prefer misfits." "Of course you do." He tapped another page. "This candidate doodled in the margins." "That's promising." I laughed, the sound startling in its ease. "We're doomed. Or blessed." He stretched, hands laced behind his head, smug as a cat. "Either way, they'll have to print new business cards." "True." I tapped the table thoughtfully. "Mine should read, Chief Sanity Officer." His smirk sharpened. "And mine, Chief Kissing Officer." My head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "Perks of leadership." He shrugged. "Benefits package. Compensation based on performance reviews." I shot back, heat prickling my ears. He leaned closer, voice dropping like velvet. "So, I should work on my KPIs." My laugh cracked free, helpless. "You're impossible." "Possible," he corrected smoothly, "just waiting for approval." The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was full, heavy with a question we'd both been circling for weeks. His eyes locked on mine, darker than the skyline behind him. I remembered the first time we'd stood here, throwing barbs like weapons, my ears hot with anger, his smile sharp enough to cut. Now the air between us felt changed, softened into something that burned without scalding. When he moved, it wasn't sudden, just closer. His hand brushed mine on the table, fingers curling. I didn't pull away. The kiss, when it came, was simple. No fireworks, no magic tricks. Just a press of lips, warm and steady. My chest loosened with relief, like I'd been holding my breath since day one. When we broke apart, both of us laughed, quiet, disbelieving, free. Finally, he murmured, "About time," I agreed. Later, as the office emptied into night, I glanced at the glass wall. For a second, his reflection lingered after he moved away. Head tilted, eyes glinting, a rogue echo of himself. It winked. Then, perfectly in sync, it dissolved back into him. My heart kicked hard, but I smiled. Because this time, it wasn't menace. It was promise. Equal footing, equal fire. 2 voices, 1 team. The city dreamed back, and for once, I dreamed forward.